So we have Shirley and Julie here with us from Regence, Blue Cross Blue Shield. They're going to talk about our pharmacy benefits and kind of explain what that includes and kind of how we can reduce costs and other information and helpful tips and tricks. So I'll read their bios. I should say, if you have any questions, you can please post them in the chat or use the Q&A function, and we can answer those throughout if they're pretty easy, or we can save them to the end and answer those at the end. So I will introduce them and read their bios really quick and then turn it over to them. So Shirley serves as a manager in clinical pharmacy client services for Regence, Blue Cross Blue Shield, for the health plan that serves members and employer groups in the Northwest states. So that includes Utah. She's been providing consultative services to the Regence sales team and to our employer groups regarding their pharmacy benefits, and has been with Regence for about 6 years. Julie is our pharmacy operations consultant and has been working with Regence Pharmacy Services for 22 years, or with 22 years of pharmacy industry experience, and has been with Regence for just over 6 years as well. She focuses on optimizing pharmacy benefits for employers, groups, and members. So I'm going to turn it over to Julie, and she will take it away. And again, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A or in the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alyssa. Welcome, everyone, and glad you are here. Shirley and I, as mentioned, we're going to walk through how to optimize your pharmacy benefits. And real quick, just a reminder to submit those questions via the Q&A function, or in the chat is available also. That way we can get those answered and addressed as quickly as possible. Our topics today are going to focus on 4 major functions. We're going to have your pharmacy networks, which are an important piece, along with your pharmacy benefits, and your benefits are actually what you will pay at the pharmacy, along with some copay solutions and some helpful resources. So pharmacy networks, this is our first topic, as pharmacy networks play an important part in optimizing your benefits, but commonly overlooked. And we like to start with this, that way you can make sure that you're heading to the right place as your first stop. We also put on each one of the section slides kind of a little helpful fact about pharmacy. So they're fun little tidbits that you can read. This first one is just kind of calling out that your cost has multiple factors that comes into that, and networks is a big part of that. So this first slide that we have on pharmacy networks, I think the key that I'd like everyone to take away from this is to understand that a pharmacy network looks and acts similar to your provider network under your medical benefit. They're created to save you time, money, and be available for all the different needs that you have. So we start with our biggest and most utilized network is going to be your retail pharmacy network. We have a nationwide network with over 67,000 pharmacies, and that retail network is really there to be there as your convenience. So we've got lots of brick and mortar pharmacies that are available in your local towns and communities that you can pop into and be able to get your medication. Other networks that we have is a mail order network, and then also a specialty network. So when you dive into the different networks that are available, starting over on the left, again, is that retail network. And again, the most utilized network that we have. And really, I think part of this network that's very unique is that almost all of the pharmacies in this network also will allow a 90-day supply. A lot of maintenance medications for chronic conditions, it's best if you can get a 90-day supply. That helps with adherence and making sure that you're not going to run out of medication. And it will also save you time from running back and forth to the pharmacy. So that's a key on your retail network. So if a medication is allowed to be filled in a 90-day supply, it's something that is an option for you. In the middle, we do have a mail order network. And I think what's important to understand with a mail order network is it's really there for your convenience. It's an option for you. Some members may live in a rural area and they don't have a local pharmacy that's close, or possibly maybe you have, is unable to get to your local pharmacy. Maybe it's not easy. So the mail order pharmacy is really there. It's a choice that you can utilize, and it's really there for convenience. You can get your medications mailed to you, and it can save you trips to the pharmacy and time. The mail order networks do have really convenient prescription refill services that can be done via a website or an app, and can really save you some time. Another thing with mail order, it's also nationwide dispensing. So no matter where you live, you have access to this. Then lastly, we have a specialty network that's available. And this network is really, it's a much smaller network. Obviously, there's going to be one pharmacy in that network. But this is for a very small kind of unique population of members that are going to be on a specialty medication. And these medications tend to be typically high cost, and they need additional clinical counseling or access to a pharmacist at any time, and also special delivery, and possibly only available for specialty pharmacies to purchase. So this network is available for those unique medications. So this network works a little bit differently, and it is something that the medication would get delivered to you. But if you're a new start on a specialty medication, you will be able to receive a fill at a retail pharmacy prior to moving to this network. And what Regence does is, because we understand that you might not know if your medication is a specialty medication, our claim system will alert us if you have one, and we're going to send you a letter. And we're going to help transition you over to this network. You can also check prior to filling your medication at regence.com to see if it is a specialty medication, or even to see if, for instance, maybe one of your local pharmacies in town, to see if they're allowed to fill a 90-day fill for you. So I do recommend that members check regence.com for checking your medication if it's covered and whether or not it's a specialty medication. And then also to see what pharmacies are available in the network for you to utilize. When you utilize the pharmacy finder, when you type in the pharmacy you would like to use, there will be indicators that will show what's available at that pharmacy. For instance, it will let you know if a 90-day supply is available, or if they can fill specialty medications, or even if they can administer vaccines or compound medications, for example. So it's really important that you can utilize regence.com. You can also call us, but these are the kind of the broad overall networks that you have. And I think at this time, I'm going to switch it back over to Shirley to go through your actual benefit structure.
Thanks, Julie. I'm going to talk a little bit about your benefits, and your benefits are made up of a number of different things. that impact what drug you have access to and what you'll pay for it. So you think about your medications as a list or a drug list that's on a formulary. Utah State University provides you with the Regence standard formulary or that drug list. And that formulary really provides you with the broadest range of medications while still ensuring that the medications on that drug list are both safe and effective. Medications get on that drug list when our Pharmacy and Therapeutics Committee, which is made up of physicians both from all 4 states, so including Utah, are part of that deciding body. And they review the clinical trial data for these medications and determine if that drug meets certain safety and efficacy criteria that would allow them to be placed on our formulary. And once that decision's been made, and that the drug is safe and effective, then we compare it against other drugs that work either the same or treat the same disease. And we look to see if one drug can be preferred over another due to, like, certain clinical trial evidence that comes out regarding efficacy, or if there's some differences in safety for that specific drug that would drive us to prefer one drug or another over another. And then finally, we look at cost to determine which drug really provides the best value to our members. All of those considerations are then used to determine what tier the drug fits on. And if you look at the bottom of this page, it talks about the different tiers that are available to you. So you see that Utah State University has a 6-tier drug benefit design that has generic, brand, and specialty drug categories. Each of those categories also has a preferred tier. So that results in the 6 tiers that you see. Preferred drugs for generic, brand, and specialty tend to have better clinical efficacy and safety information and better value or lower overall cost. So let's walk through an example and see how this might directly impact you. So on the next slide here, thanks, Julie, we see that you have let me orient you a little bit to the side because there's a lot of words on here and a kind of a complex table. If you look on the left-hand side, this is an example of the white plan and the blue plans. The only difference really between the white and the blue plans is that there are differences in the accumulator amounts. So your out-of-pocket maximum is different between those 2 plans. So if we look over here, you can see on the far left-hand side, the far left-hand column, it lists preferred generic, generic, preferred brand, brand, generic and preferred specialty, and brand specialty. So those 6 tiers are listed in that left-hand column. And then you see across the top, the headers, you see the retail 30-day fills, you see the extended supply, which is a 90-day fill that you can have at your retail pharmacy. Then there's the mail order 90-day supply, and then there's the specialty 30-day fills that you can get. So in this case study, and down below is the amount that you would pay for each of those, depending on which tier or which benefit you're filling under, if it's a generic or a brand, et cetera. So in our case study, let's take a case of Mary, who's on the blue plan, and she's met her deductible. Her doctor wrote her a prescription for a brand, which is a tier 4 medication. So Mary reviews Regence.com for looking for in-network pharmacies and average cost. Her new medication is $240 for a 30-day supply. And because if you look over here under the column under a retail 30-day fill for brand, you see that she has a 50% coinsurance. So that means for her $240 prescription, she's going to pay $120 for a 30-day supply. Now, Mary's willing to purchase this medication. She needs it. It's important for her to get it, but she wants to see if she can get a better price. And so she ends up calling the Regence customer service, which then ties her into a specialist that can help her with some pharmacy pricing questions that she might have. So she'll request a quote at mail order. And so what she's told is that for a 3-month supply, the cost of the medication would be $600. Remember, mail order is generally for a 3-month supply rather than a 1 month. So Again, because it's mail order, it's a 50% coinsurance for brand. So now that $600 medication is $300 for 3 months or $100 per month. So she's now over, the previous she was spending $120 a month. She's now going to save $20 and only spend $100 per month. But during that call, the customer service agent also brings up the fact that there's a generic available for this brand medication. This generic is therapeutically equivalent, and there's no real reason why Mary can't use that medication. And because of the way her benefit is set up, instead of a 50% coinsurance, she's going to pay only $10 per month if she gets it at retail, or only $15 for the 3-month supply from mail order. So it can save her some significant dollars. So Mary spoke to her doctor and to the pharmacist, and they both said, hey, this generic is a great alternative for you. And so she will be able to fill that generic medication, saving her approximately $110 per month. So the whole point of sort of walking through this scenario here is that, there are some ways that you can do some investigation and look to see, are there some ways for you to save money? And Julie will talk a little bit at the end about some of the resources that are available to you, but you can see here, either regence.com or the customer service. Regence customer service is a great resource for you to tap into to gain some of those cost savings that are available to you. And the next slide here really talks a little bit more or provides some details around both the dual white and blue plan members. Again, you'll see a lower copay on generics, and you may see a lower drug cost for preferred brands at the ESN and mail order pharmacies. And then your high deductible health plans is on the right table there. And you can shop between retail and mail order pharmacies for your best network pricing there. So copay solutions is another way that we can talk a little bit about, what other opportunities are there for you to save some money. And again, here's just a little quote or information for you on that slide about copay solutions. So let's talk about the various copay solutions that are available. First of all, there are really a number of different ways to lower costs. You want to use your healthcare dollars wisely. It's an important consideration in today's world of expanding costs, including the cost of medications, as we all know. And you, as a knowledgeable consumer, there are a few ways that are available to you to help manage the cost of medications. And the one I'm going to call out is and that you should always consider first, is generics first. If there is a generic available for your brand name medication and it is therapeutically equivalent, as most generics are, it makes really good sense for you to switch to that generic because you can save some significant dollars. But let's talk about a couple of other items or tools that are available to you. One is manufacturer coupons. These are generally available for brand name medications, both traditional, what we call traditional medications, as well as specialty medications, and is an easy way for you to lower some out-of-pocket costs at the pharmacy. There's also third-party discount programs. These are programs that we that are available outside of the insurance benefit. We'll talk a little bit more about those on the next slide. And then financial assistance or grants may be available from manufacturers or other third parties. Generally, sometimes from foundations. I think of like Cystic Fibrosis Foundation or the Hemophilia Foundation. They often will have certain grants available. Those are restricted by financial need, and there's something that you need to apply to in order to get access to those dollars. So if we go to the next slide, Julie, there's a little bit more detail about each of these different programs. And you can see there, we listed some pros and cons of each of them. For example, in the generics, it lowers what you pay at the pharmacy. It's convenient. Many brand drugs have a generic, but not all. The generics are the same strength and purity and efficacy as the brand, so that's a good thing. And you know, some generics actually even allow you to bypass your deductible if you have a deductible. But as we said, they're not available on all brand products, so that could be a downside to thinking about generics versus your only tool. So that's why we need some other tools. So then we have the manufacturer coupon. This again lowers what you pay at the pharmacy. You can find these coupons generally. Sometimes your doctor's office will give them out to you. You can do an internet search and often find coupons by just doing an internet search. But they're not available on all drugs. They tend to be focused on brand drugs because that's their goal. That's why they offer coupons, is because they want, the manufacturer really wants to drive you to use their branded product. So we don't see coupons on generic products generally. So it's going to be on brand and on brand specialty drugs. And you know, some coupons programs are eligible only to certain plans within. So if you have the there are a couple different types of coupon programs, and they're available differently whether you're on the high deductible health plan or if you're on a non-high deductible health plan. And then the third-party discount programs, these are things like GoodRx. You may have heard that, seen advertisements for it. They certainly are expanding and have done a lot of advertising over the last year, 2 years. It's a very interesting program. I think it's well worth you taking some time to look at it. But what I would say, one of the cons of this program is that it cannot currently be used with your insurance plan. So if it is a better cost for you and you want to use that, I would encourage you to use it. However, the amount that you do end up paying out of pocket cannot be applied to your accumulators, and it is run outside of your insurance plan. And then the final one, financial assistance. You know, again, these are great programs if you can get them. They're not available on all drugs. It's fairly limited to the number of drugs that these programs are available to. As I mentioned before, they come both out of a manufacturer, but also they can come from certain disease-specific foundations. And generally, you have to prove eligibility, and it's usually a financial eligibility. So you have to show that you are unable to either pay the amount that's required by your insurance to pay, or you are underinsured in some way. So it can be time consuming to fill out the paperwork, and you do have to provide information in order to be eligible for those programs. And on the next slide is just talks about the 2 programs that you have available with Utah State University, 2 copay solutions. One is the copay maximization program, and it applies to the white, the blue, and the dual programs. It's only available for select specialty medications. And what it does is it takes the value of that coupon. Sometimes manufacturers will put out coupons that are worth a very large amount that can be used throughout an entire year. So for example, there might be to make easy math, it might be a $12,000 coupon or value that can be used sometime within a 1-year period of time. So what this does is it takes that $12,000 and it spreads it out through the entire year. So you can take advantage of that entire value of that coupon. You as a member, you pay $0 when you pick up your prescription at the specialty or from the specialty pharmacy. And so you benefit because your costs out of pocket will be significantly less than you would pay otherwise. The coupon accumulator program applies only to the high deductible health plan. And after insurance, the pharmacy can apply a manufacturer coupon that helps lower your out-of-pocket cost. And that coupon's value is not applied to your deductible or your out-of-pocket maximum. But those are both programs that can help you lower some of your costs on these fairly expensive medications. Okay, Julie, I think I'm going to turn it back to you to talk a little bit about resources.
Yes, thank you, Shirley. I just want to take the last couple of minutes that we have today and walk through some available resources. So on this page, this is has some website links and then also telephone number that members can utilize. Also the number on the back of your card coming into Regence is a great number. So if you call into our customer service line, and that you will then be directed to a pharmacy specialist if you have a question regarding a medication or a pharmacy network. So please utilize that. The availability from our customer service agents to quote and find you pharmacies is they are well trained and available to do that. And their systems are actually really, really neat, where they just put in the drug and what pharmacy you may want to use, but it will automatically apply your benefits, and they'll be able to quote, send you a quote from retail, mail order, and or specialty if needed. So they can do that within just a couple of minutes. I've also put some of our website links. So the first two links, those are our main regence.com links. So your main Utah landing page is there, which is just regence.com. And you can log in from that page, and you can access your medical benefits, lots of information, and education is on that page, along with accessing your pharmacy benefits. The second link there is actually the direct link to the pharmacy page, the main pharmacy page. So again, from that page, you could then log in to access your unique benefits based on your plan, or you can stay in the general version and look up pharmacies or look up the formulary, whatever you need to look up. You can do it from either being logged in or not. From our pharmacy pages, I do want to direct people to, there is a forms page, again, from the logged in version or the unauthenticated version, but that forms page, it has an enormous amount of information on it. You can look up our clinical policies on medications. You can look up the formulary. You can pull up different flyers on other programs that we have. And there's even our specialty list is there, or if you have a compound, you could pull up the compound pharmacies that are available in our network. There is just a ton of information on that page. So, and it does get updated monthly based on lists being updated or new programs coming on and off. So please check that often, especially if you have a new medication, because there is a lot of information there. And just something over in that little blue kind of box that I have there is to keep in mind when you are searching on either in the websites. Utah State University is on our 6-tier drug list. Shirley mentioned it earlier, but on the website, it will have you tell the website what formulary you're on or which formulary you're searching. So make sure that you select the 6-tier drug list. And if you're looking at networks and you want to see if a pharmacy is within your network, you are going to select the participating network. The participating network is our largest network, and it should be the default network. However, just keep in mind that you're looking at the right one. There is, I believe, 3 or 4 options, and I want to make sure that you're utilizing the correct network. So I do recommend that you bookmark these pages, or maybe keep this page available to you so you've got the websites handy. And I think that sums up what I have for the resources section. So I think I'll turn it back over to Alyssa.
Well, Julie, we have some questions, so why don't we delve into those? So there's a couple questions in the Q&A and in the chat as well. So in the chat, I see there was a question about, let me get this up, sorry. What's the difference between a preferred generic and a generic, and so on? And I think Lisa responded and said, well, at USU, there's no difference between a preferred generic and a generic. They're both covered at the same level, which is correct. You have the same co-pays, either $5 or $10, whatever that is, for both the preferred the preferred generic and generic. But so what is the difference between them, even if there was a difference? So I'll just go back a little bit. remember when I talked about when we determine what drugs are going to be added to the formulary, we look at a number of different items. We look at their effectiveness. We look at the clinical trials to determine if it's both effective and if it's safe. And then finally, we look at cost. And so using all of those considerations, we determine whether it falls into a preferred tier or a general tier. So a preferred generic or a generic tier, a preferred brand or a brand tier. So that's really the difference, is how are we reviewing those drugs, what kind of clinical trial data there is. As we compare them to other medications, do we find them just as safe or just as effective? And then finally, looking at the cost. If everything is equal and the cost is higher, then we probably won't put that drug in the preferred status. We'll put it into the regular generic status. So hopefully that answered your question.
And it looks like we have another question that was in the Q&A about mail order, and if members can temporarily use mail order and then switch back to retail. So that's a great question. And I'm glad that someone brought this up, because absolutely, you can go back and forth as needed. A couple of things I'd like to make sure you're aware of is that your prescription is only going to have so many refills on it. And so if your doctor has written a prescription for a 30-day supply with maybe 3 refills, mail order is going to utilize those refills quicker. So sometimes it can be easier to get a new prescription and then take that to a retail pharmacy versus having mail order transfer that prescription back to retail. And or some medications can only be transferred so many times. So if you started at retail and moved to mail order and then you want to go back to retail, sometimes the mail order pharmacy isn't going to be able to transfer that back because a prescription can only be transferred so many times. But that's okay. Again, it's something, whatever pharmacy that you want to utilize, I would call them or get in touch with them first and say, I have a prescription, for example, at mail order, and I would like to fill it with you. That pharmacy can then help guide you through, or they could take care of getting that prescription either from the current pharmacy that or the last pharmacy you filled it at, or just reaching out to your provider for a new prescription. But ultimately, yes, you can utilize the retail network or the mail order network as you see fit.
I also see a question here about occasionally a generic at my retail location comes up with a $0 cost to me. Why is that? Which ones, can I find out which ones will show up as $0? Great question. Actually, Julie talked a little bit about that one when she provided some resources. And on that resource page is a link to the forms page on our pharmacy page on regence.com. And in there, I'm sorry, I got a tickle in my throat. In there, there's a form, they call it a form, but it's actually really a connection to a website that lists something called the Pharmacy Preventative Medication List. It's part of the, the preventative medication coverage under the Affordable Care Act. And all the medications on that list will be come up at $0 for you. So that's probably what you're seeing. There is a PDF there that you can link to, and it'll give you the full list of those medications. Sorry for the tickle in my throat. And then a last question is, I need to be on an opioid. The doctor needs to change strengths or types. I always need to get a PA. But you can take up to 4 to 5 days to approve it, which can put me into withdrawals. I think this would be something, if this person is interested in having a further discussion, I think it would be best to maybe touch base with them. And if you would be willing to reach out to HR and they can connect you with us to talk that through. Because I'd want to look and see specifically what's going on for you. We do have PAs on some of our narcotics. However, not all of them, and we want to make sure if you truly need a narcotic that you have access to it for treating the pain or whatever it's being used to treat for you. So if you'd be willing to reach out to HR and then they can reach out to us, then we can do a little bit more exploring for you, because I think it becomes very consumer or very patient specific, some of these questions. Okay.
Another option, Shirley, and rather than reach out to HR, is to schedule an appointment or reach out with Carol. That way
Yes,
HR doesn't
yeah.
have to be involved at all, and Carol can hook you up with the right people like Shirley and Julie, who are very educated in this realm.
Thanks, Lisa. That's a good idea. That's a better idea. Thank you. Are there any other questions? I don't see any other in the chat box or the Q&A.
We actually did have one more come into the chat. Do you want me to read it, or would you like to?
Oh, can
It
you
looks like
email me the
another-
web links and resources? Is that the
Nope.
one?
Farther
No.
down, so it says,
okay.
Talking about a doctor prescribing a 90-day supply, but then when they go to fill it and pick it up, it was not filled that way. It was only filled for a 30-day supply. So then they have to go through the process the next month and do the same thing. So their question was, if it's not getting filled that way, what's the best way to do that when it's not getting filled the way it's prescribed from the doctor? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think if I understand correctly, that the prescriber has written a 90-day supply, but then when you go to the pharmacy, a 30-day supply is ready, and it's either the pharmacy filling a 30-day supply or the insurance claim or Regence is saying only a 30-day supply can be filled. And that can happen sometimes. We do have some medications that this will happen to. There's like a quantity limit or a certain day supply that can be filled within a certain time frame. We do have, excuse me, most of those quantity limits listed on the formulary, if not all, listed on the formulary for a medication, and it will have a QL next to it. If that's not what's happening in this case, I would like to maybe kind of defer that, where we reach out and kind of investigate your particular scenario a little bit more. That way we're giving you, the right answer on why that's happening. So if that's something that you want us to have an additional conversation, I think I would reach out, to our account executive. I think it's Carol, to make sure that we get you handled and everything answered correctly. Oh, thank you. I see in the chat the appointment for Carol.
Perfect. Thanks, Alyssa, for doing that.
No problem. And I was going to say, so that is on the HR's website. If you go to hr.usu.edu and then under benefits, and then medical benefits, it has all the information of our pharmacy benefits, medical, dental, and then that link to schedule appointments with Carol and when she's available. So great. I don't think I've seen any other questions come in. So I think this is awesome. We'll end the recording and get it posted on the HR website. It's under Aggie's Thrive and then our past recordings. And then I did post the links to the websites and those direct pages, but we can get an attendee list and kind of send out a quick informational email as well. So thank you so much, Julie and Shirley. This has been awesome. I think we've had a lot of great questions answered. So thank you for your time and spending it with us today.
Absolutely. It's great being with you guys. Please reach out to Carol if you have specific questions that we can help you with. And we look forward to continue working with Utah State.